morning, everyone. Good to see we still have a big crowd today. Usually in academic conferences, second day we will have more chairs than people. Anyway, welcome everyone. This morning we are very honored to have a panel of established, published genre writers here. These are the real people, where else academics are, sort of the secondary level. These are the producers. Anyway, I have Dr. Anita has given me a long list of publications by these esteemed writers. I won't do that. I think you can Google that. I shall introduce them as how I see them. Is that okay? Yeah? Will I get sued? Okay, I'll start from the furthest left. This is, I have been told, Kak Tina, yes? The big sister of this community. She's a lawyer, writer, and a big sister, yeah? Okay. We have next to her Eeleen Lee. Is this the Kak Nga or the second sister?
Little sister.
Okay. We've all had her speak yesterday. We had a very fun session with her yesterday. She's editor, writer,
stand-up comedian.
Stand-up comedian, yes, okay, thank you. Next to Eeleen, we have Dr. Faz, yes, Dr. Fadzlishah, writer, neurosurgeon. Anything else you want to add?
Poet.
Poet, okay.
Poet.
Right. Next to her, we have Ika, yeah? Okay, I've not met this the first time, so how would you like to qualify yourself here? One word.
Cat butler to my cat.
Oh, cat butler. Okay, there's a cat lover. Alright. And next to me we have Tunku Halim. Dr. Anita wrote here, best-selling horror author in Malaysia. But it doesn't look so scary, right? Just his work. Anyway, I shall not take this precious time we have here. We're already running late. The topic of this roundtable discussion, whatever we want to call it, is the challenges of writing genre in Malaysia. So the brief is, you're supposed to ask each other questions. And I was also informed that this topic is a very topic that you are passionate about. Yeah, all of you. Okay, so shall I get Kak Tina to start?
Okay lah.
With challenges of writing genre in Malaysia.
Just start off by each other's definition, perhaps, of what we believe are the challenges of writing genre in Malaysia. Okay. Okay. For me, it would be we live in a culture and society where we are very controlled. The arts generally blooms in a place with the least control. So you'll see that's why in some countries where the arts is given great preference and respect, the least controls, and you get the best kind of artists. Memang that's where you also get the writers who are drug addicts and they create things that are questionably improper. But the arts is such that it cannot be curtailed, and the moment it gets curtailed, you stifle them. We live in an era and society where we respect the elders at all times, and we respect what people tell us is the wrong thing to do at all times. And as such, our society is a naturally prohibitive society. The arts has difficulty in flourishing in those kind of circumstances. And I think, for me, that is one of the main challenges. to break out of the precepts, but at the same time retain your own moral beliefs and your own beliefs of what is right and wrong, and within that to flourish as an artist in this society.
Thank you, Tina. The main challenge I've found is when in writing genre is it gets no respect. I think because I've been asked, very mortifying questions like, you're a literature graduate, you have a master's in literature, why are you writing this shit? To put it bluntly. Why are you writing horrible, scary stories? Why are you writing science fiction? Why? And I say, why not? Why not? Because I mean, it's not just in this country or in academia or whatnot, but I just found that there's this big divide between literary fiction and genre fiction, and writers of literary fiction and genre fiction writers. And the people that ask me these sort of stupid questions, I tell them, they don't know that I did 4 years of English literature, which I'm very grateful, but. I'm not saying, and another thing is, I don't believe you have to be an either-or sort of writer. And I don't understand why there's always this big purposeful dichotomy. It's like saying, books, it's either paper, dead tree books or e-books. And people don't know that, they complement each other. If people like the e-book enough, they'll go sample, they go get the Dead Tree book. They even get the special edition, the one with the fancy covers, and the appendix at the back. And I said, why? It's like, in writing genre fiction, it will complement and enhance the other sort of fiction and non-fiction and other forms of art in this country. As long as, because it's just, the only positive thing is that the only positive can come from it if you encourage it. So that's all.
Your definition of challenges of
for me, when I started off, there weren't any venues at all for genre fiction in Malaysia, especially in English. There were some in Malay, but because I don't really read and write in Malay, so I didn't have any venues. Silverfish had the Silverfish New Writing back then. I think they went up to 7 volumes, right?
Yes.
7 volumes. But if you see, most of the stories there are basically literary or contemporary. If there are some speculative elements, usually some ghost stories. Yeah. But nothing on sci-fi or fantasy, or full-blown fantasy. So I had to branch out, and it's a good thing that when I started writing seriously, it was already 2009. So the internet is is accessible anywhere. So that's why I branched out and started publishing overseas. My first publication was in Singapore. I think can't remember, 17th or 18th publication baru started in Malaysia. So I went out first, then only then people here noticed. Then they asked me to write stories for their books. Right. So I think that's the main challenge for genre writing in Malaysia for now.
Building on what Tina and Faz said, it's true that it was very difficult as a fantasy writer to find an outlet to publish here, because when I started out, I was also very young, and the first publishers I approached, they said in the first place, we don't do this kind of stories that you're writing, and it's in English secondly. And they're saying, but you know what, maybe you should, as a girl, write romance. And so and the other thing is also building on what Tina said about respecting your elders. Most of my materials and my stories, they feature other religions, different religions that were created, fictional religions, fictional races and all that. So sometimes as a Muslim and all, you're not putting restrictions to yourself, but when other people of the same religion read it, they'll be thinking, so are you a deviant now? So are you not believing in your God now? Why are you featuring these things? But that's what they are, they're fiction. They're not supposed to be real. So that was the challenge that I got. And like Faz, I actually went overseas first because I got immediately turned off by the idea initially. So my first publication was in the UK and the US with Door Books. So that's where I went, and it was after that publication that I got noticed locally as well. So yeah, that was my challenge.
Thank you, Ika. But actually, following on from Ika talking about religion and publishing genre fiction in Malaysia, I think whether it's genre or any writing, Malaysia is quite a unique country because we have many races living here. We live in a plural society with many religions, and not just that, that religion also happens in a way to divide us. And one of the challenges I face writing in Malaysia is when I'm writing a story, first I start thinking, okay, shall I make the main character Malay, Chinese, or Indian? And then I start with the secondary characters. Now, what race are they going to be? Should they be of the same race or a different race? So these issues come up. And if there is a character that might be unsavory, what race should that person be? Will a Chinese person be offended? And if the good is Malay and the bad is Chinese, am I causing some sort of problem here? So I've been writing a story and I say, okay, why don't I try not to identify this person in a racial way, using a name that could be Malay, could be Chinese, maybe could even be Indian, so that the reader doesn't know what race this person is, so they don't come with an attitude that I'm being racist or I'm putting down a particular race. So that's one of the issues in genre fiction and fiction in Malaysia, but it can also be an opportunity in some way to make a statement about what's happening in Malaysia or the way things are in Malaysia. Of course, more generally, I'm agreeing what the other writers have said. You tend to be. I haven't really been asked why do you write. Well, why do you write horror fiction or why do you write genre fiction? In a way, you are typecast, and I think that applies to genre fiction writers worldwide. So nothing, particularly special about being in Malaysia. But as you know, horror fiction tends to be very popular, and for some reason, luckily, I write in that area. Although I don't. I'm really not comfortable with the term horror writer. I don't feel that I am.
It's better to be a horror writer than a horrible writer.
I just get the impression because you link it with horror movies, and horror movies. I can't even watch horror movies because it's so gruesome. So what I'm trying to say is when we put it in a box, it's quite difficult, and you try. It makes it difficult to step out of that box. So I think that's one of the challenges.
You want to say something?
Yeah. Okay. It's interesting. You've raised all these challenges. So a question comes to mind when you find something to write about, whether it's an idea or you observe something. How do you, how should I say this? I don't want to use this word, but I can't think of a better term, self-censorship. In terms of, because of the Malaysian context, there's lots of taboos, pertaining to religion, ethnicity and all that. So when you do get, something interesting, how do you manage, the situation in this country with the control and taboos?
Start. Sekali lagi ya, aduh.
Self-censorship. That's a very good question. I think I probably do self-censor unconsciously, because in your mind you do think about the reader. What will the reader think? And we also think about, am I going to end up in Kamunting? So, especially when I was really writing Last Breath, which was published last year, I did have things in there which it was in a way a political satire, a black comedy in some ways. There were certainly areas where I thought, oh, if I publish this book, I might be put into Kamunting. Luckily, it hasn't done incredibly well yet. And apparently, I did ask a politician once. I said, about the ideas of banning books, and he said, we only ban books if they do very well. So I thought, oh, that's okay.
That's okay.
So it's recognition then.
That's right. It's the recognition. So, but still, I thought if I did put certain things into it, I might get into trouble. So yes, self-censorship does occur.
I go the opposite direction because I have to admit that I haven't been published locally yet, I have to admit even more that I haven't even looked at publishing locally yet, which is something that I should change and look into. I don't practice self-censorship that much because usually the whole way, the process of writing is that it takes over, and usually the characters explain themselves in the story as you're writing them. It's very difficult to control what person they are, what religion and what practices. But also when you're publishing internationally, it's interesting that sometimes we try to think, oh, if I want to make this hero, he has to be this blue-eyed, blonde-haired guy and all that. It's not interesting to the Westerners. What they want to know about our culture. They want to know about our practices and our religion. So most of the stories that I have published are actually do feature our local culture and our local practices, which is what they want to see.
If it's okay, I have a story to tell. I was in Form 4, that was back then, 1997. In my first, that's okay, my first love, I would really admit, is fantasy. I grew up reading fantasy. And even in school, they wanted to confiscate my books because they thought it was like some gaming book and it's not academic. And I actually fought with the prefects and the teachers, said it's a storybook, I'm actually reading, I'm learning something, so why are you banning this? So anyway, I was in Form 4, I wanted to write fantasy. So I asked my ustaz back then, and I asked him, what if I were to write some fantasy, because usually fantasy have all this like different gods and all these religions and everything, right? So the ustaz had simple answer. He said, okay, first, if you write something like this and a Muslim reads it, his face gets deviated, you have tanggung dosa. It's on you. So I was like, okay. So that's why I didn't write fantasy.
Sci-fi instead.
I did it from fantasy. But then again, now, because apparently the story that everyone's been talking about is Act of Faith. An android embraces Islam. Yeah, that's one for you guys. And the novel I wrote is actually it's about intersectionality between Islam and homosexuality. I don't think it's gonna be sold here. I don't think it's gonna be allowed to be sold here anyway. But yeah, that's why I'm looking overseas. So self-censorship, in a way, you have to think about it because you want local readers to read your work. You want to reach out to local readers. But like Athena said just now, the powers that be may not be so accommodating. So definitely, the way I see with Malaysians is that if you publish overseas and then you get hailed for that, and then suddenly people will recognize, see that's he's Malaysian, she's a Malaysian, and we're so proud of them. If you try to publish locally, then you'll say, what kind of trash is this? That's Malaysia for you.
Yeah, thank you. I struggled with little self-censorship issues when I was editing KL Noir Blue, because I had about 100 submissions, and this final selection I did, I kept asking myself, like Tunku Halim mentioned, oh yeah, these stories too much. One story was about a Chinese gangster. And then I asked myself as a Chinese person, am I perpetuating a stereotype? Should I not include this story? Then I thought, but the writing was pretty good. The author is a very strong authorial voice. And I thought, well, hell of it, I'm just going to put it in, because to me, the writer should be true to the story first. Because people will see the value, the merit, the truth in your story. Because like Tunku Halim mentioned, yes, recognition may also make you a bit more exposed to censorship, but so does, it's also a bit easier to censor outright trash. If a book is lousy, people go, ha ha ha, I don't read that book. And the other way, maybe, I'm not giving anyone any writing hacks here, I don't intend to, I don't purport to, but another way I thought, maybe I should choose a couple of stories that are over the top. That, like, there's one story in Kelanong called Bathroom Walls, and it's about a guy who engages in some Skype sex with a girl he doesn't know, and things don't go well. And I thought, just go over the top. Everyone will know it's very tongue-in-cheek. It's possibly satire, and you can't possibly censor that because there's no way. You have to be deluded if you're going to censor that. And I think that's the reason why a lot of writers turn to genre, because if they do have controversial themes and issues, they can veil it in some speculative setting or character, and it's probably like Russia or China or North Korea, maybe not North Korea, but Russia or China. A lot of genre writers turn to science fiction to disguise their sentiments. And maybe read science fiction and fantasy from those countries. It's pretty obvious, but not obliquely. And that's it. I'm not saying genre is a cop-out. People think, oh, that's a cop-out. You write genre. I don't think so. I think there is a limitation, but it's a limitation that can be used to your benefit, a great advantage if you're a writer. So embrace it. So, thanks.
Talking about self-censorship in relation to writing, all of us write for the local market as well as the international market. So I think that's how writers should go about it. You write the ideas and stories that come out of you. Then you worry about where can it be marketed. Then you worry about maybe tak boleh hantar to this anthology lah. Okay? Then there are thousands of places out there who are fascinated by the uniqueness of your characters. So I look at it that way. I think it's unhealthy to worry too much about censorship, really, in the arts, in any manner whatsoever. At the same time though, everyone has their own values and they have the stories that they want to impart. Very early on, I decided when I started writing fiction that I want to write about stories of hope, even if it has a sad or tragic ending. It carries some message of hope. That's because the theme that I want to write about. So we all can do that. You find yourself and you find your voice. That's how you find your voice. And then you worry about whether or not you need to censor it. For example, if you write a story and you find out it fits the theme of a competition or a submission call, you might need to change it a little bit because it's being sent to a Malaysian publishing house. That's as far as I go. But I would write to my heart's content.
Can I make a comment there?
Yeah.
Just on Tina's statement about submitting stories in Malaysia and submitting stories overseas, it's not really about submission of stories, it's about the readership. I basically write for the Malaysian market. So my stories assume certain knowledge of life in Malaysia and how we speak. So I will have, or using slang words, or adding a bit of Malay here and there, or Cantonese even. And then obviously a Westerner wouldn't understand fully the story. So I also have a different type of story, which is one for general readership. The story might be set in Malaysia, yet I don't assume any knowledge. I don't assume that you're Malaysian. So the dialogue might be different. I might have to explain one or two things. I use less slang words. So in fact, when you read the two different types of stories, one for general readership and one for locals, there's definitely a different flavor in these stories. There's a definitely different flavor. So that would be, I suppose, one of the challenges in terms of writing in Malaysia, that you do have to write differently, and you do have to think about who you're writing for. Does anyone have a comment?
I'm an ardent science fiction fan, so maybe I address this question to Dr. Faz first, and then maybe if comments from the rest. I read one of your stories this morning because I bought your latest your collection yesterday, so I read one this morning, and the first thought that came to mind was which one? It's the first story in the collection.
The free advertisement.
Yes, free advertisement. Sorry, I'll try. It's about a robot, act of faith. So the first thing that struck me this morning was how courageous you are to bring religion in. You mentioned about asking your ustaz about fantasy and all that. So because I've been, I do research in science fiction and popular culture, but mostly Western science fiction. And Prof. Ruzi, who's here, she was my PhD supervisor. At one point, she asked if I could look into the question of religion and the soul in connection to science fiction. And I told her, not yet. I don't have the courage. I separate religion from my research. So I just like to ask, how should I phrase this question? I think it's relevant for all as well. How do you find the courage to put topics like that on paper and then publish it?
Question. My answer will lose all the romance of the idea of it. I'll be honest. When I write something, it's basically to find myself. It's not to just answer a call or submission or anything. It doesn't work that way for me. If I have an issue in my head or anything that I need solving, I'll write it down. So that's why a lot of the stories, people ask me, is it like based on personal experience or anything? I can just answer, no, it's just stories. But then again, yes, there's part, whenever you write, I think it goes the same for everyone. When we write something, we put a part of ourselves in there. So yes, I keep losing and finding my way back to faith. So that's why a lot of stories here is about faith. And it's about coping with loss, because as working in neurosurgery for the past 10 years, we face with death almost every day. And then we face with people who are at the brink of death, and you can see the family holding on to faith, holding on to hope. So that's how when we get back home, I'll be thinking about it and everything. And then in act of faith, basically simply I just wanted to write proper science fiction, but with a Malaysian flavor. And because we've seen a lot of all these robot stories and everything, basically it's the Pinocchio story, a robot wanting to be a real person, but none of them touch on faith. So that's why I was thinking, it's really relevant, it's really possible, And then and it's like with our local setting right now, it's like Islam is for Malays. This is ours. No one else can touch it. And if you're from another race, you embrace Islam, you're automatically a Malay. I don't know what's with that, but yeah. So that's why this is my take on that. If not only another race, but what about a sentient life form? And Salahuddin in the story is a sentient android. So can they embrace? Can robots embrace Islam? So that was my take on the story.
What was it about? Oh, courage. How do you? Yeah, the courage to. Still scared. I struggle, like Faz was saying, I struggle with issues within myself. It can be religious issues, it can be moral issues. I try not to let it hold me back, but inevitably it will creep in some way. And you have to find the courage to do it, because if you're not going to face it, how are you going to look at yourself in the mirror? That's how I look at it. And writing is a mirror of your thoughts. Whether or not you publish it is another story, and then you decide. I write a lot of legal work, law reform work, and we have to examine issues of international human rights, whether it applies in Malaysia, whether it applies to the beliefs that we've been brought up to believe, things like that. And it all comes down, I think, if you really think about it. Oh, this is my personal belief. Faith is between you and God, and you really believe that what the message you're trying to put out is an important one, is an interesting one, and is something that would make people better in whatever they are. So if you really believe in that, and all you have to worry about is yourself first. The moment you start lying to yourself, I think it becomes very apparent to the reader. They pick up on you being a cop-out. They pick up on you copying some other person's idea. And that translates into your writing very obviously, I think. So if you're true to yourself, you believe that what you're writing is true, you can't help other people misunderstanding you. Even if you say the right thing, people misunderstand all the time. So you just do what you believe is right, and hopefully someone will figure it out, and hopefully tak masuk kamunting. And if dapat masuk kamunting, give us a call. We have a team to kamunting. So that's how it works, I think. So that's how I deal with writing and just meeting it. But I won't lie that we still get frightened. I still wonder, the other day I just wrote one story which is a bit sexy. I don't write erotica, but I wrote a story which is slightly sexy. Now I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I can't let my children read this. And you have to censor yourself, and you have to find the courage to do it. But you believe in the issues and the stories and the entertainment value and the worth that the reader can get out of it. So you just do it.
Thanks, Tina. I had this very strange review on the Goodreads page of my short story collection, 13 Moons. The reviewer said, I bought this book and I thought there'd be werewolves in it.
Thank God for not having that cover.
And because the book cover is a full moon, and it said 13 moons, I thought there'd be lots of werewolves in it. And I read, but the reviewer, she said she liked 3 stories. One story scared the crap out of her, so I thought, couldn't do that. So that made me realize there will always be stupid people in the world. And as writers, there will always be stupid people misunderstanding your work.
Yes.
So don't write thinking of all the possible stupid idiots out there. Because there's a default setting for this time and age, so forget it. So that, I'm talking courage. The courage in the sense of being, of that sense of being a writer. Don't be afraid of critics. Don't be afraid of flack. It's a default setting. And there's also danger as a writer swinging to the other extreme of just playing it safe. I'm going to scrub my story of everything. Religion, sex, violence. I'm going to write something very plain, very vanilla, very nicely written, like a ballet routine. But the problem is, safe, plain, vanilla writing doesn't get read. Maybe it's admired. Maybe you get a Booker Prize. Sorry. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe you get pen membership.
Yeah.
Pena, I mean.
Yeah. I mean, maybe get a couple of prizes for it. But safe, plain, pretty writing to me doesn't get read. And so I say, if you're gonna make a character a serial killer, go ahead, make him or her kill 100 people. Something. If you're going to have an alien, make it the most alien you can think of. If it's going to be a roaring dragon, or make it a badass dragon with 100 heads or something. Just and just go all out. Just go all out. But of course, be grounded. Be grounded, because writing that goes off the rails is not a pretty sight. Anyway, so be grounded and just don't think of what the reception you might get. I never think of it. But of course, in that case, I must emphasize that the importance of a few beta readers at least. They will keep you on the rails. They'll keep you on track. So that because your writing must be a little grounded, a little based, one foot on the earth, so that because if your writing is unhinged, your readers will spot that too. Because readers nowadays are very, very savvy, and very, very expressive, like the good people on Goodreads. So they keep it real, which is good for you. So.
Thanks, Eeleen. Building on all stupid people. On the flip side of the coin as well, there are a bunch of really smart people and readers, and they get what you're trying to do. And when they read your fiction, they do know the direction that you're going on. And also, like asking a question about the courage to do it, it boiled down. I mean, for me, it boiled down to my upbringing. I've had the fortune of having a mother who would always question everything. Question religion, question everything that you feel you need to question. So some of these are reflected in my writing. One of the flash fictions of mine that got published is actually about a girl who went against her religious culture to travel, because that's what she's wanted in the world. But yes, when you stick to your own beliefs and your own morals, it translates into a passion that people can pick up. So some of the readers actually said, we can see that you love writing this portion and you love writing the story. So there's no pleasing everybody, but there's no going wrong if you're listening to your moral compass also. So that was my take on that.
Talking about the reviews, there are two types of reviews that you can get. The bad review, and those are from the stupid people, and the good review, and those are from the clever people. But seriously, when you're a writer, you do get reviews, and it's part of the territory. A few years ago, there was one review in, I think it was Star, and it was a very bad review, but the reviewer wasn't reviewing my book. He was basically reviewing the genre, and this is coming back to the issue of your writing genre in Malaysia. It was a very bad review saying, who reads this kind of stuff about pontianaks and vampires? We don't want to read this sort of stuff. So I was a bit younger then. I got pissed off. And I wrote to the Star, and the Star were quite happy to publish my letter.
Oh dear.
So I thought that was my good.
It was you. I swear.
So that's the thing on reviews. Coming back to what you put into your writing, coming back to self-censorship, or putting your views forward on religion. I have particular views on religion and spirituality. I believe in the unity of all religions. But I must be very careful when I write to not be on a soapbox and preach my point of view. What I'm doing is telling a story, and the story is the most important thing, not my point of view on religion or spirituality. Some of it does creep in, and sometimes I do put it in, but I'm taking a risk. I shouldn't, but I couldn't restrain myself. I had to put something in, and because I felt it was the right time. It did fit the story. So for me, it's the reverse. I have to be very careful what I put in, because I don't want to impede the story. After all, it is a story. That's the most important thing.
Right. I think we also noticed 5 minutes. Okay. Anyway, this question, I think it's on behalf of students here, right? The question is it upsetting if a reader misread or misinterpret your story? Every time I tell my students, there's no right or wrong, reading. You can interpret it in any way. It's a work of fiction. But since, we get to meet the authors here, do you get upset because now there's a lot more communication between readers and writers. They write to you, they, follow you on Twitter, things like that. So do you get upset if they ask stupid questions or they give, something that is unexpected, the interpretation?
That's a good question. And I did have a conversation with someone about this yesterday. It is about actually the writer commenting on a story or novel. I feel, I don't know if you remember a very old song by the Bee Gees. I think it goes like this. When I was small, when the Christmas trees at home. It's a lovely song. And then later on I heard Barry Gibson. That was a song about my dog. And I sort of felt, oh, I really like that song, and I don't like it anymore. So that's the trouble. If we start, that's what I feel, if we writers start commenting on our stories, we actually change a reader's point of view on it. It is up to the reader to absorb what they can from the story and how they react to it. That's important. And a lot of the times, I think I mentioned this yesterday, the subconscious takes over when you write. And you just allow that to happen. And I'm not thinking that I want to put this idea in, I want to put that idea in. It just happens. So I think as writers, we should be quite careful when we try to retrospectively pick out ideas or talk about our stories in a certain way. I prefer not to talk about the story. Just let the reader read and take what they want from it.
That's a good point actually, because I never thought of it that way. That's something that I learned here. So it's quite interesting when you are able to engage with your readers, especially when they're a lot younger and they've got wrong or different interpretations and all. In the experience that I get, I would usually try to encourage, okay, so why do you think that way? So which part of the story makes you think that way? But saying that, I don't go back to the story and rewrite it or try to write it to match what the interpretations were. I just move on to the next story. But it's interesting to just engage. So, okay, so you think like that. Oh, okay, so this is where you pick up from that. But usually also, I think for me personally, it's the point of view of the editors and which are the harshest. I mean, we expect rejection, we expect misunderstanding when we're in this field, but for me, it's not so much as the reader initially, it's just the gatekeepers first. It's a bit backwards in that sense.
The stories are just like paintings. Sometimes painters will just like create their art in a drunken state or in high state, and they didn't know what they were doing at the time. And then when it's out there, people will see, maybe this painting is about his mother or something. People will interpret it how they want to interpret it. So when it's out there, it's just everyone's it's business to just see it how they see it. I had a few good reviews. I'll just take Songbird, the one in Interzone. There were good reviews saying that this story is like different and science is good. And then there's another story that was review in Locus says that the science was hacked, and it was like not just plain, nothing good about it. So you have to bear in mind that you cannot please everyone. So you do not do that. You cannot write something just to, okay, I hope everyone will learn this, because not everyone will like it. You just have to face that. And just take the positive ones. Sometimes people will write to you personally saying that, I love what you wrote, that's the best form of compliment you can get when people approach you personally. And you do try to make a point to reply to them. So that's the best thing that you can do for them. And the ones that give you a bad review, just let it go. Because there were some authors who actually replied to these negative comments, and because it's the internet, so people will just like, behind anonymity, they'll just like bang the author, and the author like answer again, and then keep banging, and then it goes like 70 pages of comment threads, and the author actually broke down. So do not engage with trolls. That's the most important. Don't give them fuel. You get a bad review, let it go. You can just share with your friends. And another thing is, what's important is, if someone gives you a bad review, you do not like post it in public. Your reaction to it. It's like because I think there was one author who actually did a rape threat. And that's definitely wrong. If you want to talk about the reviewer or the bad review amongst friends, fine. You want to gossip about me, fine. But do not put in public, because it just shows how immature you are. So that's my take.
So basically, I think in any art, when you create something, the response is just, when it's out of your hands, it's totally out of your hands when you release it to the world. And also, I think, writers especially, when you put words on the paper, your words become like time traveling. Because you wrote something 10, 20, 100, even especially dead writers, they write something 1,000 years ago. And we're still reading them now. And it's a way to cheat death, in a way. It's a way to make your mark on posterity. So like, as writers, you could write something 10 years ago, and people still come up to you and say, oh, that story you wrote, I didn't like it. And I'm like, oh, too bad, sucker. I wrote it 10 years ago. And you just can't control readers' reactions. Like, my first published story locally was with MPH. It was in an anthology called Urban Odysseys. And it's called Scenes from a Shopping Complex. And there's this very long dialogue near the beginning between, a very stereotypical dialogue between a child having a tantrum in a supermarket aisle and the parents trying to negotiate with the child. So it's really, it goes like, Mommy, I want, cannot, Mommy, I want, a boy, you keep doing that, I call the policeman, So, and it was quite a long dialogue, and I was a bit mortified to find out from two of my friends who said, oh, Eeleen, we love that story. Oh, thank you. But we use it in English class. What for? Oh, we use it as role play. And I was absolutely mortified to hear that. I thought, that's not a story for role playing. And so it just illustrates the point. It's totally out of your hands. I mean, you can operate under, you can expect the worst, but ultimately just hope for the best. And keep your fingers crossed. So.
Right. Following what all the panelists said, we can't let it dictate how we write. And plus, the worst thing is, you're talking about what Eeleen said, what you wrote, sometimes that comes back to haunt you later, because we immortalize ourselves in our writing. And the publishing process is such that it takes forever to get things out. Right? And you grow as you write. The more you write, the more you grow. And things that were written 2 years ago come back to haunt you, and you're like, oh, I've improved since then, I swear. And you can't help but get hurt. How you deal with the hurt is something else. And you have to realize that, like what you said, it's your baby. It goes out, and it grows up to become something else, and it's out of your reach. all you can say is you gave birth to it. Hopefully you have better babies in the future, you know. And then we try and handle things as much as we can. Sometimes there is the impulse to lash out when you've been hurt. But you have to hold on to that because writing business is such, you know. As often it's not so much the fact that they disagree with the point, it's how they say it. So then you deal with that on a manner in which, you know, mari mano mano, kata.
Thank you. So, how many students here? So don't worry if you are asked to interpret or write an essay on these works, this genre of fiction. So don't worry. It belongs to us now.
Yeah.
Okay, I just got another notice. It's 0 minutes.
Yeah. Minus 5.
Do we have time for one question? I just,
Yeah,
it's kind of important.
The thing is,
Yeah.
we can have an additional 10 minutes, but it means everybody goes out for lunch at 1:20. I'm cool with that. If you can eat and do everything you need to do by 2:30 and be get you by then, it's fine.
I think should be okay.
Are you guys okay with that?
And okay with that, then we have another 10 minutes because Zedek is burning to ask a question. He's been dying to ask a question for the past 15 minutes.
Burning. Go burn. Throw it over.
I have a battery of questions.
Throw 'em out.
Leading to the last question, actually, I'm wondering, because the question was, the way I heard the question was that if a classroom interprets your story in a way you didn't expect. So, question to the writers is how does that make you feel, and how do you deal with it? Do you feel like that's a conversation to be had, or do you feel like, oh, I wrote it this way, therefore this story is about this, and other interpretations are perhaps errors?
Thanks. Thanks, Zedek. It actually relates to one of my writing exercises yesterday. I asked everyone to write a fairy tale in a different genre, and I walked around the room twice, and the variations really surprised me. I wasn't expecting cyborg Cinderellas or werewolf Cinderellas, and so if students, come up with a new interpretation of one of my works, I'd just be like, wow, I didn't see that. When I didn't see that. Wow, I wish you'd sit next to me when I was writing, so that you're reading as I write. And I just say, well, that's great because that's in the spirit of inquiry. And that's the purpose of fiction in general, is to spark off new neural pathways in the brain. You look at Shakespeare. Shakespeare did not intend his plays to be studied in academia in perpetuity. He would laugh. He would be rolling in his grave if he found out that students were reading his work. And his plays were designed to be performed. That's why there's so many folio editions, because he wrote them piecemeal. He wrote them and he handed them out to theatrical companies, and that's why it's a bit of a mess and quite a bit of back catalogue for where he's concerned. So yeah, I just say it happens, and if it does happen, well, whoopee-doo, and that's all I have to say.
I have a different question. Ismail. Ika, you mentioned earlier about how the West wants to see our culture and our practices. So writing that is perhaps advantageous. In fact, I'm wondering whether you ever feel or you ever worry about the problem of exoticization or kind of like, I'm representing my culture I'm the one representative to the West, and how do you deal with depicting your reality truthfully, but also dealing with the baggage of representation to a degree?
That's a very interesting question also, because I do deal with the representation not just in my writing life, but also sometimes in my working life, because I'm working with different cultures and nationality. and this has been something that I've been dealing with for quite a while. But let's be honest, I mean, to see interpretations, the West, a lot of them have but done wrong exoticization and interpretations of Asian cultures for many, many years. And there's been many, many interpretations that are downright wrong, downright annoying, and downright insulting as well. So when I try to represent our culture, also it bears in mind, like, okay, I do put myself in the story as well. How do I want to highlight myself and highlight my culture in the story? So it does, although the story does take you into places that you don't understand and you don't realize, usually, again, I go back to that moral compass also of what you believe in and what you believe is important for your culture. And it's really important also as students, and all, I do advocate, if you want to highlight your culture, this is the time to put it in writing, send it out, because who else is better to talk about our culture than ourselves? We can't leave anyone else to do that for us.
I think maybe I have a question. Okay, yeah. So we've heard a lot of interesting stuff about the various challenges and so on. So in your opinion, what can we do to overcome some of these challenges? Maybe promote genre fiction a little bit more, get it more accepted and recognized in Malaysia. What can be done?
I think we should just keep on writing. Write as much as possible. Write about anything we want. Do not restrict yourself. I think the moment we encourage more writing, and it's not just you write bagus only, you write don't publish otherwise don't worry about it. Just keep on writing. That's why we need to encourage as much writing as possible from as young age as possible, because it's counter to our culture, which tends to tell us to sit down and listen to the elders. This is now the era of encouraging as much art as possible, and I think there's a realization coming out. It's new in Malaysia. I would like to encourage it as much as possible, and I think that's the only way that we can get rid of the perpetuation of all these prejudices towards genre writing, towards writing, and the arts in general. We have to show that it's possible to succeed. I think all of us are trying our best, the academicians as well, to point out and to make students understand that this can be done this way, and some of your favorite authors might have made mistakes in the past, but they've improved as a result of all the experiences. And that's how we encourage writing, which is one of the reasons the Malaysian Writers Group was set up.
Thanks, Tina. Yeah, also another thing is, not to sound too backside kissing, I think we should have more events like this. Yeah. Because it's one way to narrow the schism I mentioned earlier between literary fiction in this country and genre fiction. You must show people that it's a normal, perfectly normal thing to do, to just write genre, and also to dispel a lot of preconceived notions. Like, I think the horror writers here can relate. People come up to you and say, "Oh, you're actually quite normal." And I just say, "What does that mean?" But that's the thing. Like yesterday, during my writing exercise, I put up on the screen, who reads science fiction, and I actually made a note: not geeks, not nerds, and it's not just for boys. Because I get really, really pissed off when sometimes I'm in the bookshop, and I think the onus is on the parents. I actually told off a parent. A girl wanted in MPH. A girl wanted a science fiction book, and the mother was like, "Not for you lah. It's for boys." And I just turned around and I said, "Excuse me." Excuse me, what do you mean by that? Blah, 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 blah. And the mother got a very withering stare from me. But, I'm not saying don't be vigilante in bookshops, please. Oh, no. But the onus is on the family too. Kids follow by example. The parents' example. If they don't see the parents reading, they won't read. If they see the parents reading, they make it a habit. Oh, they will read. they will read, and a lot of us, and schools too. Schools too. They should just be an access to better libraries, better materials, and because it's still the libraries in this country, the public libraries in the country, are in an awful state, and I think that should be addressed too. Because the big prohibition here is against buying books is that the books are really expensive in this country, and book sales help a lot, but we don't have book sales every day, and that's one way of encouraging a reading culture, because I think especially for kids read best when either no one tells them what to read and they're really bored, or someone tells them what not to read and they kick against that. So yeah, that's all for me.
Can I just add? The thing is, Malaysian publishers, they don't think there's a market for it. That's a major problem right now. Because they keep on saying that Malaysians don't really read. They only read like Malay stuff like Suamiku, something, and nothing else. And they don't read in English. And somehow anthologies do sell here. Not as well as Malay ones, but they do sell. So I think that's a start. So to get encouragement, I think cons like this, and then journalists who actually cover all this genre writing and writers, they actually help. They promote awareness. So that's I think that's a start. And then we add. I mean, if we can't publish here, we publish outside. We make a name outside, and then the crowd will come. I mean, people as we at the start of it. So hopefully in 10 years down the line, there will be like easier venues for you guys to publish here in Malaysia.
Quick plug.
Yes.
Quick plug. Sorry. Shameless plug. Because it was supposed to be my presentation and I got cut out. Okay. Malaysian Writers is having a book fest right now. We just had 2 events over the last weekend. We have 10 more venues all over Malaysia, where you get to meet with the writers themselves, okay? We mentioned earlier about book sales, okay? That goes to the publishing house to get rid of their old stock. Book sales, where it's held by the authors, means that the writers profit from them themselves, all right? So go to the book sales. I'll give you the information later on. There are 10 more venues coming up, and we have a promotion going on for the entire book fair for the 12 venues. If you attend 3 or more venues, you get to take part in the lucky draw in the finale on the 31st of October in Datuan Underground, and you win a copy of all the authors' books, and there are 95 authors. These people have passed me their books, signed autograph copy, and that's a lucky draw prize, so it's worth a lot. And I'm telling you, all of them are going to be huge somebody someday, and you'll be regretting not getting the autograph book. I'm telling you. Okay, that's my shameless plug. And there's one in Oak Heart, Cafe Oak Heart Bangi, Section 15, for those in this vicinity, on the 25th of October.
Dr. Anita.
Dah, berapa kali dah?
Down 0 minute next week. Okay. Thank you very much. I think if you have questions for the writers, we can do that over lunch and later at the mentoring session as well. There's another session, yeah. So thank you very much. Tunku Halim. Bye.
Thank you.